Welcome to XYPN Radio, where your host Alan Moore brings you into a community of fee-only financial planners who want to profitably and successfully serve Gen X and Gen Y clients. If you're ready to get the knowledge you need from leaders in your field, learn from forward-thinking advisors, and take action on your own goals, XYPN Radio is the show for you. Here's your host.
Hello and welcome to this episode of XYPN Radio. I'm your host, Alan Moore, and today I'm so excited to have Shawn Tydlaska, founder of Ballast Point Financial Planning, a fee-only firm based in San Francisco, on the show today. I heard from several XYPN members and team members that Shawn had a killer first year in business, so I wanted to have him on to talk through his journey into financial planning and find out how his first year had really gone. After starting a firm with no clients or previous book of business to rely on, he closed out his first year having worked with 38 paying clients and 26 of those being ongoing clients paying a monthly fee for financial planning. We talked through how he's finding his clients, or better yet, how his clients are finding him, his process for closing clients that increased his prospect conversions from 33% to 75%, and his tips for newer advisors looking to start their own financial planning firm. This episode is choked full of awesome information. You're not going to want to miss a minute of it. This month's episodes are brought to you by RIA Capital. RIA Capital provides innovative financial planning software that digitizes and redefines the financial planning experience. RIA Capital was ranked as the highest user-rated financial planning software in the 2017 annual software survey conducted by T3, Tech Hub, and Inside Information, and was recently added as part of XYPN's technology package, making it free for XYPN members. Sign up for a demo today at riacapital.com and mention the XYPN Radio podcast to be eligible for 10% off retail pricing. You can find any of the additional resources that we mentioned during the episode at xyplanningnetwork.com/103. Also, be sure to go to xyplanningnetwork.com/VIP to join our private group just for XYPN Radio listeners. It's the community of advisors we've all been looking for that's there to provide support when we need it the most. Best of all, it's free. I encourage you to check it out. Again, that's xyplanningnetwork.com/VIP. Without further ado, here is my interview with Shawn. Hey, Shawn, welcome to the show, man. Thanks so much for being on.
Hi, Alan. Thanks for having me on. It's really an honor. I've been a long-time listener.
I'm excited. It's always fun to to sort of talk with people after their first year in business. Because when did you actually launch your firm?
I launched May 2nd, 2016. So
we are 13 months in. Yeah.
Yeah, to the day. Yeah.
So, and it's always cool because, 3 or 5 years in, super valuable insight to share, but it's a little harder to really talk about the struggles, I guess, as well as the successes of the first year. I feel like 3 and 5 years in, we just start to remember the successes and sort of like forget the trials and tribulations that we all went through. So I'm excited to hear sort of how things have been going. So per our typical format, I'll take a step back with your career. And I guess, how did you get started? I mean, was this your long-term plan going into or coming out of college to be a financial advisor?
Yeah, I think I've always been fascinated with money. It kind of has this mystique about it. We didn't really talk about it as a family too much, and I didn't really know I didn't really have very strong financial literacy skills coming out of college. I did do one internship at Merrill Lynch when I went to UCLA and I studied economics, and I had a minor in education. And I thought about going into teaching for a little bit, but I knew I wanted to do something in business. I just didn't know what it was, and so I interviewed a lot my senior year at a bunch of different firms, even like the New England Financial and AXA and all those firms. And I'm a little risk averse. And, I was a 22-year-old kid, and I didn't want to have like that pressure of meeting like sales quotas. And so I actually ended up working for the Capital Group companies in Los Angeles. They manage the American funds. A lot of people know them from their 401ks. They're a really big institutional investor, and I was doing corporate actions for them, kind of working in the back office. We had this big database of all the stocks we owned, and whenever there was a stock split, we'd have to get that set up into our system. And I worked there for 4 years, and it was a really good way for me to learn about finance. And one of the guys in our group studied to become a CFP, and I started to learn about the profession that way.
I love it. It's like a job that no one knows exists. Right? Like it's so necessary for the folks you're working for, but like, I'm going to be the guy that like manages corporate decision making, like, and inputting that into our system. Like, again, and listeners have heard me say this probably every episode, but it's always fascinating to me, the jobs that people have. And we sort of all had them, but not the job that you expect to get out of college, but a necessary job to sort of get your foot in the door.
Yeah, I learned a lot in that job, like about just how companies are managed, like from a capital management standpoint, like with rights issues and cash dividends and returns of capitals. And that's when I started to study to become a CFP. I started the classes, I think around like 2007 or so, taking them at night through UCLA Extension. And then,
did you do that on your own? Like, did you pay for that, or was that a benefit that your employer was offering at the time?
It was a benefit they offered, and I kind of had to spin it to make it apply to our group because we were more like, corporate finance and not really personal finance, like our group's focus. But another guy had done it ahead of me, so I kind of had, there was a precedent for it. And I really liked it. And, at the time, I was trying to decide if I wanted to get my CFP or go get my MBA. And so I looked into it, and I talked with a lot of people. And one academic advisor was like, the CFP is really for people that want to help others. And then the MBA, that's if you want to be like a middle manager at GM or something. And I was like, well, I don't want that. I want to help people. And so
with that explanation, no one will get their MBA.
Yeah, I started taking classes to take I started the CFP curriculum. And then my wife, she actually took the GMAT and she got in to business school. And so then we moved to Boston. And so then this is in 2008. So we moved to Boston, and I was trying to find a job at a financial planning firm, like as like a paraplanner or junior advisor or something like that. But it was hard to get my foot in the door.
Not a good timing. I mean, if anything, like 2008, not a good time to try to get a job in financial planning.
Or in finance at all. And I reached out, I think a recruiter reached out to me, or I reached out to him, and he's like, based on your background, I think you'd be a really good fit for this firm called GMO. I've never heard of them before. It's Grantham, Mayo, Van Otterloo. And Jeremy, a lot of people know Jeremy Grantham. He writes these quarterly letters that are pretty widely followed in the industry. And I did a similar job there. We did corporate actions, and then we also voted proxies for our company. So it was a little bit different. That's when I finished up the CFP courses and took the exam and passed the exam 2009. And then my wife, she graduated from business school and then got a job offer out in San Diego. That was really good, because I'm from San Diego. So it was kind of cool to be coming back home, because I'd been away from home for like 11 years, away from San Diego for like 11 years. So it's cool to come back as an adult and experience that as an adult. And that's when I got my first real entry into financial planning. And like I said, it was really hard for me to get into the career. And so my first job, I was actually an intern at a company called Blankenship and Foster. And they do real financial planning, in the sense that like they're fee only, and financial planning is definitely a core of their business. But it was an internship, and I was working like maybe three days a week. And so I was like networking around the area, and I got my first real offer from a company called WFP Securities. And it was positioned to me as I'd be working for the CEO of the broker dealer. They had about like 40 advisors. And he had a book of business, and then he had a guy that was going to be retiring soon. And so he'd be my mentor, and I'd learn about they used e-money and how to do the retirement projections. That was just like a really horrible setup just as a company.
And I'm glad you say that, because it's so hard that sometimes especially lately, I've been getting, Kitsa says I'm getting a little rough in my old age and even less politically correct than I used to be. But like, I'm so sick of this like failed succession plan lie that we were all sold on, and it comes in different forms, and it's always well intentioned. I don't mean for it to be that people are trying to take advantage of young folks, but like, how many times on this show alone have we heard the same story of like, this cool opportunity? You come in, you learn from a mentor, they're going to phase out over time, and for one reason or another, and really a plethora of reasons that have really contributed to the fact that we don't have a solid succession plan in place industry-wide, they just fail. They just don't work.
Yeah. It's not like that typical one like that you kind of are painting the picture for. This one just had other issues just as like a business. And so, kind of the backstory on this company was, so I worked for the CEO of the firm, and then his dad was actually the one that kind of got him into the business. And his dad, he made money by buying raw pieces of land and then dividing them up into like smaller chunks and then selling those pieces out. And so that was like the dad's business. And so the sons kind of took over the business. But what they found was like, you can only load people up with so much raw land, right? Like you can't put all of their assets of their IRA in a piece of land. And so they started this broker dealer, like an independent broker dealer, so that they could sell other things. And so what they filled up those other buckets with are non-traded REITs, oil and gas exploration partnerships, and all these illiquid investments. And so this is what, 2010? Yeah, like kind of 2010, beginning of 2011. And it was my job to like service these clients. Honestly, it was like one of the hardest things I had to do because these people would want like updates on their portfolios, and they weren't being serviced very well. Pretty much they would only get calls when they wanted to, someone was going to sell them something else. And so I had to kind of come up with these statements about how each investment is doing. So I would call up these like oil and gas partnerships and be like, okay, so how many wells are in production? And, are you wildcatting or like I learned like so much about like all these different, and like with non-traded REITs, I'm like, okay, you say you have this 7% dividend or 8% dividend, which is, people wanted some like security. They just didn't want to see their accounts going down after the crash. And so, they're getting 8 or 9%, but then you look at like funds from operations. So like how much is actually like your own return of capital versus like how much is the investment producing? And, I just learned so much. And so I'd create these summaries and send them to our clients. And like one of the guys I was doing these for, he was like, oh, thanks for doing these summaries. Like after you send them out to our clients, like they kind of shut up and stop asking questions, and I got on the phone with a few of the clients, and they were just so upset, and like, you don't give me any service, and, you sell me this crap. And I'm like, listen, I didn't sell, like, I really wanted to be like, I didn't sell you this crap. I think it is crap. Like, but I had to like really bite my tongue. And, they didn't do very good due diligence on these. Like chief compliance officer, he was like 70 years old, like a retired Navy vet. And he was supposed to be vetting all these like non-traded REITs. And some of them they were actually like fraudulent. And like there was like fraud involved in like the managing of these partnerships that wasn't uncovered in our due diligence. And some of them went completely bust. And so people lost tens of thousands of dollars of their retirement monies. And, like just seeing that happen to people, and, I kind of like made a promise to myself that I would never want to have a call like that with a client that I'd have to be like, look, your investment went bust, and, there was fraud, and we're going to try and get your money back, but it's, it's all gone. And these are things that like, there's no liquid market, you don't really know what the value is unless they tell you on your statement. They're just high fees, opaque, and not transparent. And so that really was like a really solid, strong, I guess, memory and kind of burned in my, I don't know, ethos, I guess.
Yeah. So, and again, like this is typically, best way to say this, these stories are all too common. And unfortunately, I think it's what happens with a lot of our young talent, and why we've really struggled to recruit into financial planning is because those folks probably called themselves financial planners, and we're doing that. And then here we are calling ourselves financial planners and doing what we do. And the service models couldn't be more different. I mean, the true offering couldn't be more different. And yet we sort of all get lumped together. So a very hard lesson learned, but probably valuable, like you said, to really shape the way that you're handling investments and recommendations with clients now, and just overall client service, to be sure that, you're doing for them what you would want being done for you. So you've got the CFP at this point. You've been working at this firm. Things obviously not going well. So what was the next transition then for you?
Yeah. So like I said, they sell a lot of like these raw land deals. And my boss like called me into his office, and he's like, we've got this really good raw land. It was called Stead, Nevada. So like up by Reno. And he was so excited. He's like, you and your wife, you should really think about, taking $10,000 or $20,000 and putting it into it. And I was like, okay, yes. I was like, really, a lot of red flags going off in my head. And I'm like, okay, so like his brother, so there's my boss that runs the broker dealer. His brother runs the raw land deals, and he like kind of sources them and buys them and, does all the permitting and all that stuff. And so his brother is the one that found this raw land. And I was like, so how much did your brother, pay for it? Cause they were trying to sell it for like $4 or $5 a square foot. And I was like, well, how much, what's his basis? Right. I just want to know kind of like what he paid for it. And he's like, I don't know. And I was like, don't you think it's like a little weird? You don't know what your brother paid for it, and you're trying to sell it, for $4 or $5. And what, don't you think my brother shouldn't make money on it? And I'm like, no, like he's taking on a lot of risk. Like, he's got to like find buyers and all that. I just like, as an investor, I want to know what my basis is, right? That's like a legit, question. And he was like, Shawn, if you're having questions like these, maybe this isn't the best fit for you. Like, this isn't the best, place for you. I was like kind of stunned, I think. And then like I went back to my desk and then like I went back in a little bit later and I'm like, so does this mean like I'm fired? Like I look for other, and so yeah, I started looking around at other places. I wasn't like fired or let go at that point, but I started looking around for other places. And then like since some of these deals like went bad, like the company got investigated. I can't remember if it was like the SEC or FINRA or whoever it was, but like there was like a lawsuit brought against the firm and they ended up filing for bankruptcy. I was like, this is kind of bringing up a lot of like old memories. But like I remember there was a day when I came into the office and there was a bunch of checks laid out on the table, and these are like settlement checks that the insurance carrier, like for errors and omissions or whatever it was, like he was signing like hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of checks from the insurance company. Like that was, and so eventually like the company goes bankrupt. And then again, I'm out looking for a job in San Diego. I interview around. I end up working for a really short time at this place called Frank Financial. One principal, and he had an assistant, and they managed about $40,000 or $40 million. And it was mostly investment management, not really much financial planning. And I worked there for about 3 months. And then another place that I had interviewed at was Hoganson Associates. Neil Hoganson was the principal there, or one of the principals. And he started the firm like 25 years ago. And so my job was to come in and be the paraplanner, help set up accounts. We used Money Tree, I think, for financial planning. And I worked there probably like my longest job in financial planning to date. And it was about like 18 months or so. And I would sit down on client meetings, take notes, run the projections, ask follow-up questions, set up the accounts and all that. And that was like real financial planning, but like most of our clients were like between like 55, 65. I think Neil was like, early 60s at that time. And, we're helping them with like Medicare and Social Security strategies. And we just raised our minimum from $1 million of AUM to $2 million. And, I just had this like inner calling, I guess, that I wanted to serve a wider audience. So like low to middle income families. So I started studying for the GMAT, and I took the GMAT. And I remember going in, like when you apply to business school, you have to get letters of recommendation. And I went into Neil's office and I was like, hey, I'm thinking about going to business school, and, I'd love to have like a letter of recommendation. And he's like, oh, you're thinking about going to business school? All right, well, let's start winding you down here, and started removing responsibilities from me, which was tough because I hadn't even applied to business school yet. So and also I wanted to be like upfront about like my intentions, but that was tough because like I wasn't going to go to business school for like I ended up leaving there around May. I think I started applications in like August. So like for the next 6 months, like they were slowly taking away responsibilities, and that was tough. What I saw, so my wife, she actually went to HBS, and she was there at the same time Alexa Von Tobel was. Like they were in the same starting class, and so I saw her go on to start LearnVest, and I was like, wow, like at business school, like you can do so many great things through business and have such a profound impact. And so I decided to go to business school because I wanted to start my own fintech. My idea in my head and like what I wrote on my applications was like, I want to start a financial technology company that leverages the best aspects of people and then the efficiency of technology. And my goal is to positively touch the lives of 1 million people through personal finance. And like I was like, yeah, this is what I'm going to do in business school. I didn't even know about like Personal Capital or Betterment. This is like 2012, I guess. I didn't really know about them. Like they were just kind of coming onto the scene, and then kind of get into business school and learn about these companies, and they've got like $100 million of venture capital. Like Personal Capital was started by Bill Harris, the former CEO of PayPal and Intuit, and I'm like, holy smokes, how am I going to compete with these people? And so during business school, I was really networking hard with all these different companies. And I had an internship out in San Francisco at a company called MyVest. And they do the technology. They actually just got acquired by TIAA-CREF. So they do all the technology for like rebalancing and separately managed accounts and, tax loss harvesting. And so they're like kind of a technology provider. And I did marketing for them. And they were actually owned by Bill Harris, who was like the CEO of Personal Capital. And that was like my ideal dream job was Personal Capital, was working there. So when I graduate from business school, I'm still like really struggling to find a job. I went to the University of Michigan for business school. So I should mention that. So from San Diego, we moved to Michigan, and then from Michigan, we wanted to get back out to California. Well, actually, we were pretty open. I was interviewing at Betterment. Got to like the final stages of interviewing there. Like sat across the table from John Stein, and things didn't work out there. And I eventually, kind of talked my way into Personal Capital, and I had a contact there, and I was like, hey, like, let me like come up with like a proposal of something I can do for you guys. And what we ended up doing was a post MBA internship. So it wasn't a full-time gig. And at this point, this is about like 5 months after business school. And I'm getting really antsy, right? Like I'm getting really antsy of like, what am I going to do? I'm a failure. I haven't found a job, and I've got my CFP and an MBA. And I actually started looking into starting my own RIA. And I remember reading Sophia's, blog post about how to start an RIA. I started looking into like the steps I'd need to take. And then the post MBA internship opportunity came about, and I was like, okay, I'm going to bust my ass, like work as hard as I can at this, and really, so like the commitment was for like 3 months, like we're going to try this out for 3 months and then go from there. And I was like, I'm going to work as hard as I can to get a full-time opportunity. And that was a really cool opportunity there. So what my role was they were trying to get Personal Capital in front of more people. So their idea was to sell Personal Capital. They have this dashboard. It's like mint.com where you can aggregate all your accounts, but it's more like on the investment side. So you can like really drill down into like, okay, what's my large cap exposure? Kind of like a lot more tools there. And so my job was to work on this financial literacy program, and we call it like a financial fitness program, to see if we could sell Personal Capital as like a benefit to companies. So, you have your health, vision, dental, and then you'd have Personal Capital where you could do like a free 1-hour consultation. I went around to like maybe 10 or 12 companies in the Bay Area, like doing lunch and learns, just kind of explaining how to use Personal Capital and like the basics of personal finance and how to build an emergency fund. And after, kind of 3 months in, kind of had a conversation with my boss, and he's like, there's no guarantee that there's going to be a job for you at the end of this. So you might want to start looking around. And I ended up working there for about 4 months. And at the end of the 4 months, I've been looking around, and actually one of the advisors there, who's now an XYPN member, he turned me on to XYPN, and I started doing my research about it. So I worked there until about March of last year. So like March 11th was my last day. And, kind of during that last month, I was like, I did my prospect call with Stacy, and, kind of like, I was like still unsure. I remember it so vividly. I was actually literally in the back of an RV on the way down to LA. We were going to watch a friend run the Olympic trials. And so we did this big road trip, and I did my call on February 13th with Stacy. And one of my hesitations was like, I wasn't sure if I like wanted to join XYPN because I still had this goal of like building like a fintech or having this 1 million person reach. And she's like, well, with XYPN, you're part of this movement, right? You're part of like the next generation of advisors. And together we're all serving like the next generation. And that really stuck with me. Like that really like hit a nerve. And I was like, yeah, like we are part of this movement. And so that was on the 13th. And then on the 14th, on Valentine's Day, I'm in the back of this RV, and I'm like on my iPhone, and like the guys are like, what are you doing back there? And I was like, I just joined XYPN. I'm going to start my own financial planning firm. And they're like, oh man, we're sleeping off our hangover, and you're starting companies in the back of our RV.
One day you can go back and buy that RV so you have it. That is awesome. What a road to travel. I mean, it's interesting because like you had all the credentials and all the experience and all of that, and just could not find the right fit, but like probably ended up where you needed to be in the long run. It just took, a few steps to get there.
Yeah. And like kind of thinking back, I think, for anyone kind of getting started in the industry, like, I really recommend like working at a place like Hokanson Associates or fee only, like doing like the like real good financial planning that are not commission based, or that are really kind of digging into like the financial plan, and learn like what an ACAT is, learn what like how to do like account setups, and what an IPS statement, and kind of like really cut your teeth at one of those firms. Because I think by the time that I launched, I was 34 by the time I launched, and so I had like additional life experience, and then like also like the real world experience of working in a firm. And, it all just kind of ties in really nicely with the fact that I do want to serve my peer group and help people get on the right track financially. So yeah, that would be like kind of one of my tips for someone kind of starting out.
And like say, get the CFP. I can't emphasize that enough. I know we have a lot of folks that ask, can you start a firm without a CFP? And the answer is yes. We've had people do it, but the success rate of folks with a CFP is so much higher. And I think it's not just about the marketing side of the designation, being able to say, hey, I have this designation. It really is just about learning your stuff. It's hard to sell a service model, if it involves you not actually knowing all the information. And so it is amazing that the differences that we see, and we're in the middle of doing a benchmarking survey of XYPN Network members, and I'll be curious to know if there's any correlation between CFP, at least having gone through the CFP education, whether you've passed the test yet or not, or had the 3 years of experience, just how all those pieces are correlated with overall success. But it really is sort of, for me, it's step one. Like you said, get a job, step 1B. If you can do them both at the same time, do it. And go get a job doing real financial planning, which, as you saw from your experience, is not the easiest route. I think the average CFPs in NAPFA firms is 2, if I'm not mistaken. So, if you look at the fee-only firms across the country, the ones doing, if NAPFA's probably the best proxy for real financial planners. They only have 2 CFPs on average. You're going to increase capacity by 33%. So that's a big leap, but you got to find those opportunities. Like you said, like you can do internships, you can be an associate advisor. We've had folks on here. Dave Grant's a good example. I mean, he started out as an admin, and he said, fine, I'll be a receptionist for you just so I can learn. You're going to quickly move out of that position. That's not a long-term career prospect. But if that's what gets you in, that's what gets you in. So you decided in sort of February, March timeframe, you're going to launch your own firm. And you said you launched in May. So you moved really fast to be able to get it off the ground.
Yeah, I don't know if I really even knew any better. I was just like, I just had a fire underneath me to like get moving as quick as I could. I think I was the one that kind of reached out and started our launcher group, like before Arlene or, Maddie even like reached out to me. I was like, so how do we get going? I signed up. Like, when do we meet? Like, what do we do? I reached out to guys like Scott Frank and Chris GP and like, the local XY people in San Francisco. Like, okay, what do I need to do next? I moved really quickly to get my ADV filed. I can't remember the dates that I got it filed, but like it was like about 6 weeks to get through for California. And I like looked at like other people's websites, kind of use them as templates. I just used Squarespace. I took 2 days. I think was it Andrew? Yeah. And Michael Posner was like, when it comes time to like write the content for your website, just go somewhere like picturesque or like inspirational. Just take 2 days, just write all the content and just like bang it out. And so that's what I did. I just like took 2 days, banged it out, like put it up on Squarespace, found this Marriott right by the airport in San Francisco. And you can see the airplanes landing like kind of over the San Francisco Bay there, like just from their lobby. And there's a Starbucks there as well. So like I feel like I'm not like, too freeloading. It's just like going to their lobby. And to be honest, that's actually where I meet some prospects. Like it's just like in the lobby there. Most of the time I meet my prospects at the library. I live in Burlingame and they have a really nice library with study rooms that you can reserve. You can even reserve the rooms online, and they have a whiteboard and a flat screen TV. And yeah, that's where I kind of run my business out of there. So it keeps my overhead low.
That's awesome. I have not heard that recommendation before, but that's so good advice for Michael. So we'll give Michael Pausner the credit on that one. But so go somewhere picturesque, calm, like sort of get you in the zone, and then hammer out content for your website. I like it.
Yeah. And I think I got my ADV approval at the end of April. And then Eric Gabor, he's at XYPN as well. And he was in my launchers group, and he's like, so you got approved. When are you going to launch? Are you going to launch next week? And I was like, yeah, I guess I'm going to launch next. Yeah, I'm going to launch next week. And so then I was like, all right, so like, what do I do to launch? And so I kind of came up with like a launch playbook of what I was going to do when I launched, and like an email blast. And I was like pulling all my contacts off of LinkedIn and all my friends on, like I created like this huge email distribution list. I think it might've been like 1,000. Like you can download all your contacts from your historical Gmail emails. Like, so all of your contacts from there, you can download it and dump it into Excel. I mean, I filtered it like appropriately just to like announce the launch. And then the next day or like the day that I launched, I was in the library on my Facebook page, like my company Facebook page. And I went through all of my friends and invited them to like my page. So I think I had like 200 likes on my page there.
So is that sort of where your initial clients came from? Or I guess how did you get started in getting those first few clients on board? Where did they come from?
Yeah, so I started with zero. I didn't have, a book to bring over. I did get so like my very first client, like I launched May 2nd and he signed up May 4th. And this was like an old friend that I used to play soccer with in high school. And he just saw my post and he started messaging me on Facebook, and we set up a meeting like the very next day. And then I was like, look, you're like, he was married, he had a kid. And I was like, look, you're like exactly who I want to serve. So initially it was kind of the friends, family. I think I got my first, I met you in person at NAPFA middle of May. And I signed my first I signed my first person that was not like from my natural market. She lives in Michigan. She just found me on XYPN and we set up a meeting and I signed her like May 16th or so. So initially, it was tilted more towards my natural market. And then as the year progressed, it was more towards XYPN leads. And now lately it's kind of shifted more back towards my natural market, and I'm starting to get referrals from my current clients. But yeah, over that first year, I got 99 leads, like 99 initial discovery meetings where we had like an hour-long conversation. And 40% of those were from XYPN. So I had 40 conversations from people who found me on XYPN.
40? Oh man, we're going to have to put a quote about that. We try to do some work around consumer lead gen and that sort of thing for our members, but I've never heard someone say they got 40 conversations off of our website.
Yeah. So what happens, I think, I've tried to, just kind of anecdotal evidence, but I try to ask people like how they find me, and they Google like how to find a financial advisor, right? And then there's a San Francisco Chronicle or SF Gate, like our local papers here. They have some articles and it says, make sure they're fee only, make sure they're a CFP, make sure they're a fiduciary, and check out NAPFA or XYPN, like specifically if you're like looking for younger advisors. And where I'm located is down in Burlingame, which is right next to the airport. So it's about 20 minutes south of the city and like 20 minutes north of Palo Alto. So I'm on the peninsula there. And what I think happens is they put in their zip code and then I pop up. I do get some people from the city as well. And I don't look like your traditional financial advisor. And, when I went, I think some of it I attribute to like the content I have on my website is I just really spoke from the heart about like what I want to do for my clients. And I have like this frequently asked questions page about like, who do I work well with? Who do I not work well with? So when I meet with my clients, I'm like, so do you have any, questions about me? Or, and they're like, a lot of your stuff is already on the website. So I don't really have any questions, like my fee, my services and fees are on there. So they have an idea of like what my pricing model looks like. I think that all attributes. And like I said, I think it's part of like just like my life experience too. And then also I use Calendly for scheduling on my website. And I would recommend like having a lot of open slots for like the evenings and the weekends, because my target market is young professionals, and they're both, usually it's like couples and they're both working full-time jobs. And so they can only meet me on nights and weekends. And pretty much, I do like my work during the day, and then I meet with my clients in the evenings, and then Saturdays and Sundays. And then also I'm on Yelp. I think not a lot of advisors are on Yelp. And I had two initial early clients, right? Or two just prospects, actually. We just had a prospect meeting. They wrote reviews on Yelp, and, just here in the Bay Area. And I think just our generation likes to see like that social proof, or, just kind of see an endorsement, right? And like, since I don't have any control over Yelp, like that's totally fine. And I got 3 clients off of Yelp in my first year.
3 clients off of Yelp, which, as you said, like not an area most advisors have gotten into, which Kitsis will love this because he wrote an article one time about why, there will never be a Yelp for financial planners. So he can, you can duke it out with him. And what he was referring to was the fact that just Yelp usually survives because you have thousands of people coming through your restaurant. And as a financial advisor, we just don't have we just don't have that many people. But you can, for folks concerned about the compliance, because I know that's the big question that comes up, like, how do you manage compliance? As long as if you're going to ask anyone to review you need to ask every client. So don't just cherry pick the ones that are happy with you and ask them to go review. As long as you ask all of them and you don't try to take down negative reviews, and you just let them as long as they're real and they're authentic, then that's okay. You can have Yelp. So it's awesome that you've got 3 prospects coming from Yelp. It's just an incredible flow of people. And I pulled up your website while we're sitting here talking. So for folks that want to know, we'll link to it in the show notes. But do you want to give everyone the website URL so they can go check it out?
Yeah, it's Ballast Point Financial Planning. So ballast, like ballast of a ship, financialplanning.com.
So ballastpointfp.com. So yeah, go check it out. I mean, your site looks great. It's not something that you had to spend $10,000 or $15,000 on. Did you actually design this yourself, or did you hire someone to help you with it?
Yeah, I just designed it myself. I forget what theme I used, but yeah, it was just a Squarespace theme. And I designed so back when I was trying to find a job, when I first graduated business school, I created a small little blog, and I used Squarespace there. So I kind of had a little bit of experience with how the website worked. And I mean, you do have to there are some kind of, I guess, quirks to the website, and their customer support's pretty good, where you can just ask questions, and they have a pretty good library.
Yeah, but for just getting started, it's a great way to get started.
Yeah, I also there's those free whiteboarding apps. I have a little whiteboarding video on there. And then I also have I just kind of stood up and in front of a camera and did maybe 1 million takes, just kind of trying to introduce myself that I am a live person, and so they could hear me talk. And so I have that on my About Me page.
That's awesome. Yeah, this is really impressive. So you said you had initially tapped sort of your natural market. Is that sort of what you were talking about with Facebook and pulling your email addresses and contacts and that sort of thing? Or did you do more targeted outreach, trying to, reaching out to specific folks? I guess, how did you tap your natural market as you were getting started?
So initially, when I was trying to even think if I should even launch a company, I listed out who I thought would be my ideal target market, and I just kind of reached out to them and asked them. I think you guys recommend this as well. What are the financial challenges that you're facing? This is what I'm thinking about doing. Is that something that you would be interested in, or your friends would be interested in? To be honest, I'm not pushy about refer me to your friends or anything. I think just kind of positioning yourself as a resource and keep me in mind if you're overhear someone saying oh, I'm struggling with my credit card debt, or I don't know what to do with my student loans. I definitely be happy to have a conversation. And I'm not a pushy sales guy. And then, the other thing about XYPN, I don't know if it's still true, is people said that when they searched, you can do a filtered search on XYPN, only 2 people said they were specializing in student loans, and I was one of the 2, which I thought was kind of surprising, because I thought more people specialize in this, and maybe it's changed recently, but I think that's how people found me as well.
Yeah. So for listeners that don't know, I mean, one of the things when we launched our advisor profile search was that we didn't just want to be location based. I mean, that is a piece of it, but we also wanted to say, who do you actually serve? And some of the search engines out there, I mean, you can check all 400 check boxes, or it's just sort of generic, I specialize in retirement planning. And every CFP is well, of course I do retirement planning, so I'll check that box. And you end up, it's not helpful. And so to your point, you picked a niche that was actually your niche, and not a lot of other people had it. And so, when folks are coming to the website, they're saying, well, this is my problem. I have a problem with my student loans, and I want to be able to talk to somebody about it. And they're finding you to be able to have that conversation, which I think is phenomenal. I mean, our search engine was built with that in mind. And there's definitely some quirks and things we're always refining there, but it's fun to see the niche work. And I know everyone hears us hammering on the word niche and having a niche and all of that, but just being specific around this is what I do, this is who I serve, and this is a specific problem that I help solve. People are not out there I'm just looking for a generic financial planner. They're I have a question about my student loans, and I need someone who can answer that question. And, come to find out, I'm not sure consumers realize that the vast majority of financial planners can't answer questions about student loans because they're used to working with older advisors or older clients instead of younger. But, still a great example of, how clients are going to find you.
I'm not, that kind of I don't know, I always have a knee-jerk reaction when you say you have to niche, or I personally don't believe in that, because I really like serving a wide audience. My youngest client is 22, and then my oldest is 67. But I do kind of have, Michael Kitces has this term, center of gravity. My center of gravity is 25 to 45-year-olds. So in my initial year, I really liked having conversations with all these different people, because on one hand, I'd be talking to someone who's just graduated college who's got like credit card debt that they need to figure out. And then like a little bit later, talking about somebody who's like thinking about retiring. So I don't think like that's how I got my success or, or had the lead flow. I wasn't like targeting dentists or doctors or anything like that. I don't think you necessarily have to, like I didn't, but I am finding that like now that I kind of have had like, a decent amount of success, I'm starting to consider like, okay, maybe I shouldn't start taking these pre-retirees because I don't want to do like a complete like retirement projection. And like, I don't do very many like retirement projections for someone who's under 40, right? Like, and it's kind of like, okay, I use Right Capital. So I got to like, okay, kind of remember how to plug in all the assumptions again. And it is kind of, so I do charge them a little bit more just because it is a little more work. But yeah, so I think I'm starting to become like a little bit more, I guess, selective in who I'll take on. I mean, I haven't like turned away anyone. Like, it's still my first just over a year. But it's like kind of in my mind that maybe I should like be a little bit more focused and intentional.
Yeah, and we certainly see that over time where as you grow, and I, we've talked about this a lot, that ultimately I understand the pressure in your first year. Like, you're not going to turn away someone that would speak or would spend a couple $1,000s for your financial planning services and just tell them like, oh, no, sorry, go away. Some folks do, and they've been successful. Some folks don't, and they've been successful. There are many contributing factors, obviously just one that we hit on. But we do see over time that, as you can relax a little bit and as you feel like, all right, well, I'm making money and I see the light at the end of the tunnel of how I'm going to make money and have success so that if I lose a couple of clients, I don't have to shut down my firm, that things are feeling good, that you can be more selective, not even necessarily around the niche, but just around sort of the folks you really enjoy working with, which I think is what leads to the niche, is you just sort of find those conversations you really enjoy having. Like Kitsa says, that center of gravity, just the ones that are really fun and inviting. And sometimes you just have those clients that for whatever reason, they're just sort of a drain on you and it's not as fun. And so you're going to do things a little differently there. But so you're 13 months in, how many, I guess, out of that first year, obviously you have talked to a ton of prospects. So how many clients, I guess, did you work with in your first 12 months? And how many sort of ongoing retainer clients, either, doing financial planning or just investment management as well, but sort of those ongoing relationships do you have at this point?
Yeah. So I was really pushing the ongoing financial planning, like from the beginning, like painting it as like a, long-term relationship. And so, yeah. So at the end of my first year, I had 38 total clients that I had worked with and had paid me. And then 26 are ongoing retainer clients.
Wow. That's incredible. I'm a little bit in shock. I mean, you sound like Chris GP in terms of first year success. So I'm not even sure how to ask you, like what are you contributing or crediting the success to? Is it just hitting the ground running and really just pushing hard? I mean, I guess how do you defer? I guess where do you give the credit for that level of success and that level of clients coming in your first year?
Yeah, I was like talking with Chris GP about this, and he put it like, "Oh, it's great you're getting a lot of at bats, right? Like I got a lot of those like prospect meetings, and they're like legit prospect meetings." I think part of it is, honestly, like life experience, and I think I'm a little bit fortunate to be located in a densely populated area with good jobs, like right in the Bay Area. But then just because I got the leads doesn't mean like, I can convert them. And what I attribute that to is I really invested a lot in in myself that first year. So it was about July. I was getting really frustrated because I'd have these great conversations with people. I'd love to work with them. At the end of the meeting, I'd be like, all right, I'm going to send you a proposal. You guys think about it and let me know if you want to work together. My conversion rate was like, I was just really frustrated. It was like 30%, like only like 3 out of 10 would sign up. And so I didn't know what was good, what was bad, or, I had no idea. Some people were like, oh, that sounds pretty good. I mean, 1 in 3 basically pick you. And I'm like, I don't know. I just feel like these people, I could help them, I just feel like I could help them. So what I did was I reached out to Nancy Blakey and I did a couple of like one-on-one sessions with her. And kind of like the key takeaway there was like, don't just give them the proposal at the end, like, because then it's like, yeah, sure, send me a proposal, I'll think about it. And that doesn't require any action or commitment from them. Sometimes I never even hear back from them. And so what I changed it to is like, okay, this first meeting's all about to get to know you. And like, if we like each other, we're going to set up a second meeting and I'll go over a proposal with 2 or 3 different options for how we can work together. So like, just relax, like it's just going to be a conversation. Kind of takes the pressure off that first meeting. And then in the second meeting, it requires them to commit some time. So that's kind of a filtering mechanism. So about 57% of like my prospects set up that second meeting. And then from that second meeting, my conversion rate's about 75% now.
Wow, that is 2.5 times higher where you were before.
Yeah. So I consider my conversion rate, like, of the people that I want to work with and that I give a proposal to, it's 70 to 75%. And I did go through her sales training course, but like this like little nugget like kind of came out in like our like one-on-one trainings. And I did go through her, like, I think it was like 10 courses. And I'd recommend that for any new advisor as well. You really learn like really good questions to ask your prospect. And that's like, I think really key is like knowing good questions to ask, like just shutting up and listening. Like I really try to listen 80% of the time in that first meeting. And she gives you like a structure for how to run that first meeting. Yeah, which is just great.
Okay, so just so I'm clear on the structure, the big shift that you made, which I guess small shift that had big results, was instead of, hey, I'll email you, at the end or after the meeting, a proposal, it's you actually schedule time with them and then go over the proposal together. And that has been that big of a shift in terms of signing up new clients.
Yeah, and I think it's a combination of things too. Like I also went to Money Quotient's 3-day training, and that's all about, I'm really big on values-based financial planning. And so I think a part of it is like echoing back what they say to you so that they can feel heard. And so in that plan delivery or that proposal delivery meeting, I'm saying, okay, you want to save for a home. I'm going to do a how much home can you buy analysis. So I map it to like the deliverable, and like, I want to have a secure retirement. Okay, so let's do a financial independence projection. I want to like save for my kids' education. Okay, let's do an education projection. So it's like mapping what they said. So that's like the very first part of the proposal meeting is kind of mapping out what they said and kind of echoing back to them. And then the next step is, I have like that 60-minute initial meeting, and then the second one is 30 minutes. And then I have them do a net worth statement. And so I say, I'll do a quick, check in. I'll do a quick overview of your net worth and kind of like, okay, where can you improve things? And, what do I think, what do I think about, like, kind of, a lot of people just want to know, like, how do I stack up given my age and income and stuff? And then I kind of,
I've probably never seen their net worth before.
Yeah, a lot of them have it. And I'm really big on tracking the net worth and using that as a measure of success. Like, how are we doing together? Strengthening the assets, getting the liabilities down. So then I kind of go over their net worth, and then I go into the proposal of like, okay, these are all the things we're going to cover. And yeah, Nancy does a good job of like reviewing your proposal with you and like, how can you improve it? Really making it about the client and like, this is how it'll help you. Like, don't you want this? Like, it's like using that word "you," right? A lot. Like, this will help you get to the home of your dreams. And then I have my fees at the bottom of like, okay, this is the I think I frame it as like an investment, right? This is the investment. And then this is what you get out of it. And then I reiterate, like, after I drop the number, I reiterate, and this will help you achieve these 2 top goals that I know are like the reason you set up this initial meeting to begin with.
That's such an awesome structure. And it's what I love about Nancy's course. So we've had Nancy on the show a couple of times now to talk through sort of some of her sales training philosophies and her course. And it really is just about creating that structured process so that you can refine it, so that you can say, all right, well, I've been saying this and it's kind of awkward, or it's kind of an odd ordering. So what if I tweak it, or what if I try going over the net worth in this 30-minute meeting just for a quick overview and seeing how that works? Because the cool thing is, for your prospect, it's the first time they've ever gone through that meeting with you, and so they don't know that it's different. You're the only one that knows that it's different, but you get to sort of continue to refine. But like you said, it's awesome when you can create a lot of at-bats for yourself so that so you just keep on swinging and getting those hits and just improving.
Yeah. And the other thing about like emailing them the proposal is like, they have like lots of questions even when you go through it in person, right? And so like you're leaving it up to them to digest it, to understand it, and then to commit, or like to have the time to come back and to write the, I don't know, just to like respond to your email. And I just love how Nancy frames it as like, sales is just about helping people come to it, like make a decision. And people want, they want financial advice. They just, have a hard time coming up. I think there's a little bit of sticker shock too, right? I can also like go over like what I charge if you want, but like I, kind of framing it as like an investment, and like, this is something you'll get money back, or that'll pay dividends for the rest of your life. Is kind of how I frame it. And So when my range for the upfront fee is between like $500. I just raised it for retirees to like 25 or pre-retirees to like $2,500. My average fee, like kind of after my first 7 months, my average upfront fee was like $875. But now it's just over $1,000 for like that upfront fee. And the way I frame that to the client is like, okay, you pay half upfront as a deposit, and then you pay half at planned delivery or after our second meeting. And that way it kind of just makes it easier for them to stomach. And then the ongoing fee. So yeah, my average fee, like usually for like someone who just graduated college, someone who's like, there's also some people that come to me that just have like just really tough stories, like they're first generation American, and like, I just really want to help them, but I can't, I just don't feel right charging them like $1,000. So I might, charge them like $500 and like kind of limit the scope of the engagement. But typically, I should send you this. I have a services and fee PowerPoint presentation. It's basically like 2 slides. And I got this from Anna Sergonina, so I want to definitely attribute it to her. And it is awesome. Like, this is, I go over it at the end of every initial meeting. And it basically outlines, okay, this is my workflow. We're here at the discovery meetings. If you become a client, this is what we do. And then we'll meet, 3 times, and then we'll meet every 6 months. And then on the backside, like imagine it's like a hard card stock, a little bit bigger than a postcard. And then on the backside is this is your fees. And so it kind of says, single person or like college grad is $500, single, no children, $1,000, young families, $1,500, and pre-retirees, $2,500. And then ongoing fees, $150 to $350. And then for asset management, I use Betterment, and this is something I've really struggled with, but I don't charge anything for asset management. And I just, if they use Betterment, like they need an account open, I don't charge any fees on top of that. And to be honest, like I try and have all my clients move their IRAs into their 401ks. So that way we can do backdoor Roths. I just feel like there's much more value in that than me getting like, 70 basis points on their investment.
So you're not charging anything on AUM other than they're paying the Betterment Institutional, 20 basis points.
Yeah, that's correct. I just can't. I like, one of the tenets of like investing for me is like keeping your fees as low as possible. And so I say that's like what my investing philosophy is. And then I'm like, oh yeah, by the way, I'm going to like add this little layer of fee on top of Betterment. And Betterment is just so easy to like, you send your client a link and it just like walks the clients through it, and they kind of do the follow-up about, okay, how do I actually like move my account from my old 401k? And they kind of do it on their own. It's kind of like empowering them to do it on their own.
So you said you have a monthly fee of $150 to $350. So how do you determine what that fee is going to be for each client?
Oh yeah. So yeah, I think I didn't quite finish that part. So yeah, my average upfront fee is about $1,000 a client, or per client. And then for the monthly fee, I say it's determined based on complexity, right? My lowest is about 150. And then right now for like, it's kind of like what stage they are in their life. And then also, if it's like, there's kind of like 4 criteria, right? Like, do I like this person? Would they be like a good center of influence or like a referral source? How much are they organized? It's on some hand, you got to like kind of do that calculation in your head. Like I've heard it on the podcast before, like if you charge, kind of in that 1% to 2% of income range, you should be okay. So for single, like I've been finding like a lot of success with like single young professional women who like, they might be in a relationship, but they're doing it on their own. They just want to get like financially stable, and like their fee might be like $200 a month. But if it's like a couple, like I've had a couple couples that are like about to get married, they haven't combined finances yet. So it's almost like I'm doing 2 financial planning engagements for them. And so for them, I charge $250 a month. And then for like a pre-retiree, that might be $299 a month.
Okay. So it's a gauge of complexity with a little bit of flexibility for you, just based on, I've never heard anyone say, their level of organization, but that the truth is that may be one of the biggest determinants of how many hours you have to spend with a client. Just because if they're hyper organized, and I've had those clients before where you get everything with these like nicely labeled PDFs and everything's exactly where it needs to be. Those folks are rare, but they were much easier to work with than the folks that sort of come in with the proverbial shoebox of random documents and just sort of say, here's my life, figure it out for me. But yeah, it really gives you the flexibility, which, I will caution some folks out there that some state regulators don't allow for complexity-based retainers or complexity-based pricing. They want to know exactly what you're doing to determine that fee, but most states will allow some flexibility there. So the beauty of having 50 state regulators and the SEC to each have their own sets of rules.
And yeah, so so right now my average fee is about like $185 a month for my average retainer client. And it's hard to like put a value on your service. It's like an invisible service. I forget where I heard it, but like someone said, like just set your prices just outside of what you feel comfortable with, right? And so I've kind of used that as like a gauge, right? And then in terms of like justifying your fees, like a lot of people are like, what are you going to do for me for $200 a month? Actually, what I kind of want to do, like, maybe I'll talk with you offline about this, but do like a breakout session at XYPN about like, what are all your great financial hacks? Like, how can you get more cash to your clients? And so for every piece of advice I give to my clients, I have a tab on I do a lot of my planning in Excel. I have a tab in Excel called Results This Far. And it's like, okay, we got you a Chase Slate card, so your credit card debt's gone away. So that'll save you, $50 a month. We adjusted your insurance deductible, so we got your emergency fund set up. So now we can adjust your insurance deductible. We increased that deductible. So now that saves you this much a month. Refinancing student loans, like if they have private student loans, you can refinance those with Common Bond, Earnest, and SoFi. And each time you do that, you get $400 or $500. So like they can get $1,200 just by refinancing their student loans. Those are my favorite. Those are some of my favorite. Oh yeah, and then like applying for like the Chase Sapphire Preferred card is a great one. Like that's like $500 of free money. So like you add all these up and you divide by 12, and it's almost like a game. How can I more than make up for my fees? And so I think I need to do a better job of like sharing that with my clients of like, look, this is all the stuff we did together. And so I don't know, kind of like shows the value in addition to showing like improvements in their net worth and progress towards goals.
And that's something I'm hoping maybe Shawn with Right Capital can will hear us talk about this. I'd love to see this integrated into financial planning software, but the tracking of progress, and tracking of what we've done, because it's sort of like once you do something like that and you transition them to a new credit card, it's almost like forgotten. It's sort of, what have you done for me lately? I remember getting very frustrated. I had a client that I talked out of one disability insurance policy that was rising premium and got them into a level fee premium disability policy. And that one switch saved them like $60,000 just in terms of premiums over the next 20 or 30 years, because they were sort of a young professional doctor. And I remember, like a year later, they're like, all right, well, what are we going to pay you for the next year? And I was like, are you kidding me? You have paid me for your entire lifetime of fees because of this one recommendation. But I didn't have a good way of tracking it and showing it. So it'd be awesome to see that the way you're doing that, because I do think it's important, because clients forget, and they are asking, okay, well, I'm going to continue to pay you. What are you doing for me? And just to have that sort of list of these are the types of things we've been doing, and this is how we're earning our fees in very tangible, real ways, in addition to all of the sort of more qualitative intangibles, like digging in and really helping them understand what it is that they want to do with their career and their life, and helping them sort of find, financial health, and helping them develop that.
Yeah, I use PowerPoint for my financial planning and like just the presentations. And I think I'll just make it like one of the last slides to kind of end on a good note. Like, look at all the money we're saving you. But then on the other hand, I have lost 3 clients in the last month or so. And I always hear Will Kaplan saying, like, think of your practice as like a bus, right? You only want 60 ideal clients to fill it up. And I think it's fine if people like, I view it as like, I get my clients on the right track, and then, automate things as much as we can. And then they graduate, and my bus, it's got bus stops, right? People can get off, they can come back on later if they have another question. And since I charge a fair price for my upfront fee, I feel compensated for my time. So, and like the people that have left, there's been no hard feelings. Like they've even, like one of them's even left like a Yelp review after he left. I think people are like scared that like, your clients are going to see this monthly bill every month, and it's like, oh, what are you going to do for me on every month? And like, I don't promise them that, but what I do say is like, I'm going to work really hard to earn that fee every month, to be delivering that value to you. And if you're not getting like the $200 of value, I'm a professional. Like I understand if like you can move on and like graduate, and like, you're not contracting for life. And so I think that kind of gives them comfort too. Cause like, I think people see this $200 a month and they're like, oh man, I'm committing this for the rest of my life. So I think that kind of helps the client, wrap their head around it. Cause there is like a little bit of sticker shock they're dealing with.
Absolutely. So one more quick question I have for you. So you mentioned going through Money Quotient's course, and I know some of the folks over at Money Quotient and have heard they have just an amazing course, I have never been through it myself, though. So can you tell me just a little bit about sort of what it is and what you learned there and how that was valuable for you in your practice?
Yeah. So I really think the future of financial planning is going to be more around helping people align their values with like their money with their values, like aligning like what their core values are with how they spend their money. Money Quotient has just a huge library of these tools that are like kind of the softer side of financial planning. And so over the 3 days, they introduce you to these tools and you're buddied up with another person and you go through each tool with the other person. And so you're listening. On one hand, you're the planner kind of listening, taking notes, and then repeating back what you heard. And on the other side, you're kind of the one that's the client. And so you're role playing for 3 days. And then afterwards, you get the choice to license some of the material. So there's 4 different tiers of licensing. I think I'm licensed level 2. And to be honest, I haven't really used a ton of their templates and things. I use this financial satisfaction survey, and it's about 20 questions. It's really good for update meetings, so you can kind of see where your clients' heads are at. Like, I'm satisfied with my level of insurance. I'm satisfied with my, and it's like high, medium, or low. And it's kind of a way for you to like kind of say like, okay, maybe they want to relook at their estate plan right now, or, kind of gives you some ideas to think about. But there are so many, I guess I'm not like completely 100% bought into all of their things, and I don't really use a ton. I do for my values-based stuff. I use this values card deck from Think to Perform. I think it was Corey Percat showed it to me at Napa when I met him. And it's really cool. It's like 52 cards and you give them to your client, and it takes about like 40 minutes during a client FaceTime where they're kind of sorting the cards, and then you have a conversation about it. And they take the 52 cards and whittle it down to their top 5 favorite. And a lot of times it's like independence, family, relationships, maybe wealth. And then it's just a really good tool to get to know your clients. And so from that information, I make my financial planning recommendations. Like if it's adventure is like their top value, then like, okay, let's give them more of a travel budget, So I think the values-based theme is going to be a big, I guess, like really important going forward. And I think Money Quotient also is really, really good for giving you good questions to ask your clients. Like a good one is like, what did you observe about money growing up? That like, I don't know. You can learn so much. And then you say, okay, well, how does that impact your relationship with money today? And like, that is so great of a question. And then like, also I like, do you have any fears about working with a financial advisor? And then a lot of times they're like, I've never worked with a financial advisor. I don't even know what to expect. And then I've got a good piece of collateral. It's like 12 tough questions to ask your financial advisor. I think that was from an NAPFA post as well. And it's like, ask how they're compensated. Ask how they're a fiduciary. How are they going to help you? And so I kind of walk them through the questions they should be asking advisors. So I think just kind of having that 12 tough questions and then having like a services and fees handout. I think with those 2 things, I would move on, like instead of like trying to build like a bunch of marketing collateral, like just have those 2 that you like at your fingertips when you're meeting with clients.
Yeah, no, I love all of those tools. I think it's awesome, like you said, to be able to learn how to ask good questions. I think that ultimately that's what financial planning is all about. And I know I harp on it a little bit too much, but the CFP board teaches us how to do the science of financial planning, but they never really teach us the art. They don't teach us the art of communication and how to uncover those issues, because a client may say that there's something that they want, and you can spend a lot of hours, using your science training in order to develop the answer, when in reality, what they really wanted was something else. Awesome to know that some of those training programs are out there to help folks with that.
And with the Money Quotient and with Nancy Blakey's, like, especially with the Money Quotient one, you really get to experience what it's like from the client's shoes. And so to have someone listen to you, like, spill your guts and then repeat it back to you, like just having that sense of being heard, and like that was really powerful. And that's like kind of how it kind of like cemented, like, yeah, like just shut up and listen. Like just ask your clients what they want and they'll tell you, and then like that's why I like try and get out of my own way. Like if I catch myself talking too much during a client meeting, I'm like, okay, let's pump the brakes here.
No, I love it. So as we're sort of coming to the close of this show, I'll ask you the question that I know you've been thinking a little bit about. If you could go back and give yourself one piece of advice, sort of that one thing that you wish you had known then that you know now, what do you think that piece of advice would be?
I think, I struggle with like, kind of like the confidence of like am I like really delivering real value? Right. I don't know if it's like the imposter syndrome, but like when I was, just had my CFP, I was helping Kathy Restivo down in San Diego. She is amazing. And like, she was putting on this workshop about how to accomplish your financial mission to military families. There's about 150 military families. And I was just there helping like put the notebooks on the tables and stuff like that. And she's like, hey, do you want to do one of these next time? Or, or like, what do and like, I was like, man, I just had my CFP. Like, I don't know if I can do this. Like, I don't know if people will listen to me. Right. And she's like, no, you're a CFP. You've accomplished that. Like, no one can take that away. You're qualified. That really like, I don't know, you have like these like kind of like inflection points in your life. And that like really like turned a switch for me. And I think as I've kind of learned and gotten more experience, it's okay to not know things. Clients don't expect you to know things. Like, you're bright, you're smart, you can figure it out. Like, write down their question and then do the research and figure it out. Like, and so I think if I maybe like, I think I would tell myself to just have like that belief in self and belief in like value, I guess, earlier on. So that way maybe I started this journey a little sooner. I don't know. Just like, that's what I would tell myself.
Yeah, it's amazing. I think all of us have struggled with that at one point or another, and some continue to struggle with it, and really, being able to own the value that we provide. Whether it's a financial planner or service provider or whatnot, sometimes it really is the imposter syndrome. It just creeps up on you. One day they're going to figure out that this is all one big sham, or some competitor is going to come in and do it, provide twice the value for half the price. And they're going to find out that I'm making too much money. And in reality, like, we do really, really good work. If anything, we charge way too little for the value that we provide. So awesome words of wisdom for our newer, financial planners.
Just one quick thing. I don't want it to come off as like everything's been like just great this first year. It's really hard. It's really hard, especially like being out on your own. Like, I don't have anyone to talk with right on a day-to-day basis. And I think that's something I'm struggling with right now. It's just kind of like having a strong support group. My wife is great, and like some of the XY people I talk with, I don't have like strong study groups. And, I think that's, just like kind of I guess like that's one thing that I'm currently struggling with, is kind of like the loneliness piece. So I started to like try and form like other study groups, and actually just hired like a business coach to kind of help with just like I don't know, like the mental side of things. Right. So I don't want it to come across like it's been like it's been a great 12 months, but like it's definitely been a struggle as well.
Not all rainbows and unicorns, as we like to say. I mean, and it is, I appreciate you saying that, because, you are a great success story and just absolutely killing it. But it is a struggle. It is a grind. Entrepreneurship is not easy. And anyone who says it is, I don't know, maybe they're independently wealthy. I'm not sure. But it is never easy. It is always, it's always going to be a tough road. But, many of us are willing to take that tough road in order to, create the life for ourselves that we want to live. So thank you for injecting that, because I do think that's extremely important for folks to hear, especially as they're looking to start their own firm. But Shawn, thank you so very much for taking the time to be on the show. We really do appreciate it.
No, it was a pleasure. I really enjoyed it. Thank you, Alan.
A big shout out to our this month's sponsor, Right Capital. Sign up for a demo of Right Capital's innovative financial planning software at rightcapital.com and mention the XYPN Radio podcast to be eligible for 10% off retail pricing. Be sure to join our VIP community at xyplanningnetwork.com/VIP to hang out with other XYPN Radio listeners, ask questions for future mailbag episodes with myself and Kitsis, and to finally find a community of like-minded financial advisors. Thanks so much for joining me today. We'll see you next time.
You're not alone, and you're not crazy. It's scary starting, building, and growing your own financial planning firm. And that's why we put together a free private community just for you, the Cutting Edge Financial Planner. Go to xyplanningnetwork.com/VIP or text XYPN Radio to 33344 and join a network of thousands ready to change the lives of Gen X and Gen Y clients.